Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the digital platform of Sadhan Chandra Mahavidyalaya. I, Goutam Majhi, Assistant Professor as well as Head of the Department of English. On behalf of Department of English, welcome you all to this special lecture series. As you know that we have been conducting for a long time this special lecture series, and today I'm back with session number 15. And there are several eminent speakers who have already delivered their insightful lecture on our platform. And I'm very happy to know that the students are really uh, getting help from this lecture. And today I'm back with Professor Debasish Lahiri. I would like to welcome our special guest, Professor Debasish Lahiri, on our digital platform. So, Professor Lahiri, we would like to welcome you on our digital platform. And before you commence your lecture, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for this special talk. Sir, if you have few words for our venture that we have been doing for a long time, then we'll be very happy to know from you. Then I would like to tell about you, then we will begin the session. So,
the digital platform is a very new thing for me actually, and I must say that I'm very thankful to Sadhan Chandra Mahavidyalaya, English Department, and Goutam, who is my former student actually. So for extending this invitation to talk about Eliot to you. I'm still getting the hang of the system, as they say. So I just hope I kind of perform well today on the digital platform.
yes,
Back to you, Goutam.
thank you very much, sir. Yes, Professor Debasish Lahiri had been he is my teacher even today. Whenever I feel, I will definitely get back to him. But before he commences lecture, Debasish Lahiri teaches English literature at Lal Baba College under the University of Calcutta. His writings on post-colonial theory, Indian, African, Australian poetry, and European modernism have been published in international journals and anthologies of criticism. He has delivered keynote and plenary talks on poetry at leading universities in India, abroad. He has been invited to speak at Manchester Metropolitan University, University of Paris, Nanterre, University of Grenoble, Alps, and University of Paris, 13 among others. He has one co-edited book, Literary Transactions in a Globalized Context, that was published in the year 2010, and one co-authored book, Tragic Survivals from the Hellenic to the Postmodern, which was published in the year 2017. To his credit, Lahiri is an internationally acclaimed poet. His poems have been widely published in journals like the Journal of the Poetry Society of India, Muse India, Indian Literature, In Capture, the Poetry Salzburg Review, Weber, the Contemporary West, Six Seasons Review, Byword, the Punch magazine, and the French Literary Review, among others. In French translations in Cecil 21 Europe Recourse au Poème and La Traduzione, and in Portuguese in Nervo Colectivo de Poesia. His four books of poetry are First Whale and Testament 12. No Waiting Like Departure, Author Prize 2016, which was shortlisted as one of the five best collections of that year by Scroll and India Today. Teen the Tender, Poems of Love and Loitering, Author Praise in the year, which was published 2018, and Poppies in the Post and Other Poems, Author Praise 2020. A book of French translations of his selected poems, Passés sans Verbs, is forthcoming in 2020 as part of the Poems du Monde series from Epic Editions, Algiers. Lahiri is currently on the editorial board of Gitanjali and Beyond, Scottish Centre for Jagat Studies. He is a reviewer and regular contributor to the Life and Letters column of the Statesman newspaper. Lahiri is a recipient of the Prix du Mérite Nazi Naman Literary Prize 2019. Nazi Naman Literary Prize 2019. He is an honorary member of Maison Naman pour la Culture. So we are really very honored and fortunate uh, to get this eminent speaker on our platform. So before Sir commences his precious, insightful lecture, I'd like to inform all of you, if you have any question, you can drop your question in the comment box. Then after his lecture, we get back to him with your question and he will answer your questions. So no more further delay. I like to give this entire session over to our honorable sir. Sir, now the session is yours.
Thank you, Gautam. I've been asked to talk about two of Eliot's poems, which is in the undergraduate syllabus. First, of course, is that tour de force called Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and the second one is Preludes. Uh, I must say that I have a confession to make. That, in fact, a twin confession to make. The confessions being that even before I begin, I acknowledge the fact that I shall be a failure today, and that I shall also be incomplete in whatever I do. And these two confessions do not disconcert me at all. I'll explain to you why. Because the subjects, the two poems that I'm dealing with, are singularly incomplete, especially Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, on which I will try to concentrate in the time that is given to me today. It's a huge challenge to talk about Eliot and about Prufrock within, let's say, an hour, less than an hour. So I will be talking about incompleteness, and I will be talking about failure, and how those two can be elevated to the station of art, to high art. So as I said, how can you presume and how can I expect, of course, that I shall be able to say something complete and something fruitful about the subjects I'm dealing with? So I accept the premise of incompleteness and failure as I start trying to make sense with you today as to how we could possibly look at the complexities that students and readers of Eliot, general readers of Eliot, have always confronted when they have approached this particular poem. The first one, of course, the great one, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I would go with the idea that Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which, let us remind ourselves, took almost 5 years and a bit more, perhaps, in its in how it was constructed. The first complete draft of the poem was ready by 1910, we are told. And then there were several others till the first publication in the first form, you might say, in 1915 in the Poetry magazine. So, and then of course, it underwent a few more significant additions and subtractions and editings before it came out in the 1920 poems, which, was the casting of the die, in terms of the revisions and the journey of that book. So it was almost a 5 to 6 year journey. And that is how I want to pick it up. Not as a one-off poem, a poet taking up his pen to write a poem and finishing off writing a poem, and then we have the poem, the world debates upon the poem, world relishes the poem. It's not something like that. It was rather a kind of a tiring house of ideas, if I could put it that way. A place where notes and queries over a period of time accumulated. There was an accretion of ideas. It's almost like how stones and rocks are created in nature. The deposition of the debris of thinking, of ideas, of impressions picked up, of influences over a period of time, which germinate, and ultimately they fructify into poetry, into a final shape. In this, Eliot was not doing something very original, let's put it this way again, because he's our poet, his elder poet, a poet whom he always looked up to in his juvenile years, Walt Whitman. He did that quite significantly, you must understand, in his Leaves of Grass, which was one great exfoliating volume of poetry, which every time it was brought out in a new edition, he added poetry to it, he refined it. So Love Song of J.R.P. Prufrock almost took on that particular template of creation, whereby it germinated, it came to fruition over years of refinement, years of influences, years of change, to finally assume the shape that we know now, we are so familiar with now. So it is, and what I actually, I've titled, Goutam asked me for a title for today's lecture, and I said echoes, just simply echoes in Prufrock and Preludes. If I could put it that way, that simply. These are echoes in the garden, you know. Uh, Echoes, by echoes, I of course mean the thorniest, one of the thorniest parts of Eliot, reading Eliot, that is to deal with his illusions, his wide array of illusions. It is one of the great problems of dealing with a learned poet. We have had our own experiences of trying to grapple with another very learned poet, of course, in the syllabus. I'm referring, of course, to John Milton. But you know, the greatness about these poets do not lie in the difficulty of their illusions or the tangential directions in which they often take us with these illusions, apparently. It is how these illusions ultimately simplify and bring evocatively a very powerful message home to us. The success of that elaborate structure, complex structure, coming together at ease, almost like the organic growing back a lopped off branch on a tree, or a flower coming from bud to flower, flowering of an entire garden in spring. I mean, it is as organic and as easy a process as that. To achieve that, I think, is the greatness of the poet. Not the sheer difficulty or the recondite nature, difficult nature of the images and the sources from which he culls them. They do not signify the greatness of the poet, I don't think. If difficulty were the only criteria of judgment for poetry, then a lot of other people than the ones that we read would have graduated as great poets. But the great poet is someone who circumvents all of that. He uses that, sometimes as a stalking horse, as we will see, sometimes to play with the reader, sometimes to indulge and dare the reader, but often to use it as a kind of cultural shorthand. You know, when you take down dictation, you're instructed, you're taught how to write in shorthand so that you can keep pace with the speed in which at which the reader, the speaker is talking. You know, reporters are taught that skill of shorthand. This is cultural shorthand. Let me put it this way. When you have to deal with the sheer myriadness and the plethora of events that constitute history all around us, if we have to respond to all of that, it's almost difficult. By the time we respond to one, another is upon us. So we need to use shorthand, cultural shorthand, by which we can inhere, bring in all of that, you might say, into what you might call a single whole. In the case of Eliot, he used allusion to that effect. Now, today I will, as I said, embark upon a seemingly doomed enterprise of trying to talk about illusion in Love Song of J.R.P. and perhaps a little bit in the Preludes. Now, as I said, it's a doomed enterprise because I shall not be able to accomplish that complex and lengthy journey in the time that I am permitted today. But I'll still try. I'll try to cram in as much as I possibly can in the course of this lecture for my students today. I have chosen to talk about illusion to start off with. Illusion, contrary to popular belief and the experience of both teachers and students who teach Eliot and other learned, elusive writers, like Ezra Pound and John Milton perhaps, but written in English. Illusion is not, as I said before, and I reiterate again, a sign of diffusion, of dilution. of losing focus. It is actually the honing of a particular idea to cutting edge sharpness. Illusion, instead of, again, contrary and instead of in contrary to popular belief, that illusion spreads our consciousness. It takes us on different voyages and journeys of conception, but takes us further away from the real subject, the real theme of the poem. Instead, I'll try and demonstrate to you how illusions are actually anchorage. They anchor the poem, the central concerns and themes of the poet. Uh, in order to do that, what I will do is I'll try and talk about illusion, but and I'm going to ignore the long history of almost forensic criticism that has mined Eliot's poem for possible connections, allusions, sources. Almost every line has been analyzed under the microscope. You know, Eliot and his poetry has been the patient etherized upon the table. He has been cut and studied in abstraction, in context, out of context, in all possible ways. So I'm not going to go into the glorious, incisive history of criticism that has looked at Eliot's poem and has tried, as I said, to find different sources for almost every line in Eliot is seen as a circuit, as a road, as a route back to some other text, to some other cultural artifact or historical incident. What I have tried to do, or what I shall try and do today, is in my office, as someone who has tried to write poetry over the last few years, I don't know with what degree of success, I will try to see, as I said, illusion from the inside, if I could put it that way. How a poet sees illusion, how Eliot possibly saw illusion. It is not illusion as a corollary of a central idea, where I'm trying to say that, oh, this line comes from Dante and that line from Shakespeare. It is instead looking at originary artworks, with their literature or painting, as the case may be, and trying to find a connecting link. Sometimes poetry is as simple as the working out in the poet's mind of certain cultural and artistic signatures, how he works them out in words. In trying to demonstrate that to you, I would, of course, ask Goutam at this point to bring up the first image that I've shared with him. The first image, as you shall see, of course, on your screen, coming up now, I think, is that of a painting by the wonderful Renaissance painter, Michelangelo Caravaggio. And this is a particular poem, of a juncture in the poem, and I'll read the poem here a little bit, and then I will, yes, that is on screen. This is the beheading, or the skull, the beheaded John the Baptist. His head is brought on a platter. There is a reference, a direct reference to this in Eliot's poem, and I'll kind of begin with that. But before I go to that, please keep that on screen. I will start reading the poem at the very outset, the very beginning. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow with like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. Now, of course, this overwhelming question, which is an overwhelming question that confronts us every time we read the poem, is drawn from the epigraph from Dante's Inferno, which precedes the original poem, where, of course, the idea is that a speaker will only answer the question put by the poet if he is satisfied that this answer shall not reach back to the world of the living. So the impossible transit of the answer to that overwhelming question, which may never reach the world of the living. So therefore, do not ask what is it, let us go and make our visit. Uh, Over here, of course, there is a little nugget. What I do today is, as I said, I do not go up against the history of criticism. I do not go and question the series and structure of allusions outlined by several illustrious critics. What I do is put before you, for your own judgment's sake, a set of my own allusional tidbits, which I think Eliot must have worked on, and which explains a lot and sets the poem in a better light for us to understand what exactly he was trying to do with the poem and the artistic workmanship behind that line and structure of allusion, if I might put it that way. Yes. I'll just go back to a line that I need to read for you. In Inferno, Dante's Inferno, that is to say, Dante Alighieri's Inferno, which is part of his Divine Comedy, of course. This is Canto 34, lines 22 and 23. The English translation runs something like this. How icy chilled I then became. Ask not, O reader, for I write it not. It's a question that relates itself to do not ask what is it, let us go and make our visit. Where Dante is walking into the 9th circle of hell, and which is, of course, the deepest and the coldest, perhaps. Now, as he says, the pains and pleasures, if there be any pleasures, of confronting that atmosphere in hell shall remain in hell. A lot of critics in the past have alluded to, in passing, that perhaps Eliot got the idea of the world of Prufrock, if I could put it that way, from Dante's notion of inferno, of hell itself. There are several circles and cycles in it. The inner world of torment, of indecision that we find in the character of J. Alfred Prufrock is his own private hell. And he goes deeper and deeper into it, to the extent that, there is this, you might say, anecdote, which talks about Dante himself, after he became successful as the writer of the Divine Comedy. People on the streets greeted him with a particular way of salutation. They said that, Ecovi leuma, c'è stato l'inferno, which in modern day English would be, this is the man who came out of the depths, who came out of hell. So remember, I jumped to the conclusion of Eliot's poem. If you have read the poem, of course, I take it that you have at least read the poem once. If you go to that last line, and human voice of, you might say, Prufrock. Of course, drowning from what? Where is he drowning? What levels to what depths, and is he going? Of course, it's the depths of Erebus, the other name for hell, depths of Avernus, Lake Avernus in Italy, where it was rumored, the myth was that if you dived into the Lake Avernus, if you reached the bottom of the lake, you would reach the mouth of hell. So you see, already a structure of illusion opens itself out. And I go now to the first painting, which is on your screen. This particular painting by Michelangelo Caravaggio of Salome bringing in the death's head, the severed head of John the Baptist. on a platter. The reference, of course, is in the Bible. If you read the New Testament of the Bible, you will find that in Matthew and in Mark, in both those books of the New Testament, this particular episode is mentioned, where Salome, or Herodias, as she is sometimes called, the daughter of Herod, danced so well in front of Herod that Herod, who was a stepfather, by the way, was so impressed that he said that I will grant you any wish that you make to me. And Herodias or Salome consulted her mother, who had a grudge against John the Baptist, because John the Baptist, of course, had said some very unkind things about her marriage, previous marriages, that is to say. Now, so Salome goes to Herod and demands that the head, the severed head of John the Baptist be brought to her. Of course, Herod was, as the Bible says, was very distressed, saddened by this request. But since he had made this claim, so he had to honor his own promise, and he ordered his executioners to go to prison and behead the poor prophet, and bring his head on a golden platter. Now, this particular painting by Caravaggio actually shows you, in fact, Caravaggio, and I will show you another painting by Caravaggio on the same theme. Caravaggio actually painted several, at least to my knowledge, at least 4 paintings on the same subject. This one is now hanging at the National Portrait Gallery in London. What you see over here, look at the expressions on the faces of the 3 characters. The character at the back, whose face is half in shadow, is actually almost half in prayer. His eyes are closed. The woman, of course, who is Salome, looks away. She's not looking at the severed head. And the executioner, or the soldier who accompanies the 2 of them, is brutally, cruelly holding the hair on the severed head. Now, I will go back and I will ask Goutam to bring up the second visual, the second image right now, which is the other painting of the same theme done by Michelangelo Caravaggio. This is an even more brutal. This is not the head on a platter, but the actual scene where the beheading is about to take place. You can already see that John has been impaled by a sword. He's almost dead, perhaps. And the executioner now, again, brutally, cruelly, pins him to the earth and is about to, and he has drawn his big dagger or knife and is about to take the head off. Again, if you look at the characters surrounding, the panoply of characters surrounding that executioner figure, you will see that except one person in the middle, the central figure, who is wailing or is horrified by the scene. And by the way, the orange or yellow cape which falls from the body of John is a sign of the flow of blood, the blood that is on the floor, right? Everyone else looks either insipid, without feeling, there's a loss of feeling, there's an apathy, there's a loss of feeling, or there is no feeling at all. If you look carefully in the background, this is a prison, and there is a kind of a prison window from which 2 other convicts are looking onto the scene as if something very interesting is happening. As onlookers look out of windows, they are completely unmoved, apparently, by the horror of the scene. Now, this second painting hangs in more
some technical glitch has taken place. So we are contacting our honorable guest. Hope very soon he will join us. So be there, please. Now, places. Technical glitch is there. That's why right now it gets disconnected, and I hope that very soon he will join us. He's trying to connect. There's some problem is occurring that we can't, but very soon he's going to join us once again. This is the problem of this kind of online platform that where technology gives us everything, where some kind of glitch also takes place. That's the reason. That's why this wonderful intriguing session gets disturbed. So I'm really very sorry for this reason because please have patience. He's trying to reconnect this session. Video paused. I know the video paused because some of you Mega Barry writing video paused. Yes, but definitely video paused because certain technological faults have taken place, and this is one reason behind that. Our honorable speaker, Dr. Debasish Lahiri, Professor Debasish Lahiri, gets disconnected, and he is trying to reconnect once again. I hope that he will join us very soon. So please be there and have patience. Let me call him because he can't. Okay, the information that I've got from our honorable speaker that actually he was speaking, delivering the lecture from his mobile phone. The mobile phone is not right now not working properly. That's why he's trying it from his laptop. So please bear with us and sorry for the inconvenience because this inconvenience has taken place due to the technical glitch. We are very sorry for this reason. I hope so is going to rejoin us very soon. So please have patience and please bear with us. Thank you, Orithrik. Okay, I'm taking this the text that you have saying Orithrik is saying very interesting. Thank you, Orithrik. Megha Bari saying echoes in Prufrock and Preludes. I think Megha has answered someone question to the topic of today's lecture. Anyone told me, okay, Runita, hope we have got the topic because the topic is on the screen also, so you can easily get that with the topic today that our speaker is dealing with. Uh, okay, Kaushambi Patro, okay, thank you. Then we get to see. Okay, Ronita, already you have got the Ronita. Meenakshi Mishra, the video got frozen. Yes, video gets frozen because of this technical glitch because sir is disconnected. So basically, actually, he was using his mobile phone for this lecture. So suddenly some problem occurred in his mobile phone. So again, he is trying from his laptop. So please bear with us for a few minutes. Hopefully, he will join us within few minutes. Thank you very much. Megha Barui writing video pause. Yes, I know. Uh, Tukaram Adsul saying very useful webinar. Uh, Tanushka Chatterjee, good evening, sir. Good evening, Tanushka, to you too. Shongita Halda writing, good evening, sir, and all followers. And same to you too. Sanjoy Sorin writing, good evening, sir. Good evening to you too. জামান আতিক, ইংরেজি ভালো লাগে শুনতে, আপনার উচ্চারণে প্রিয় দাদা গৌতম মাঝি এগিয়ে যান, শুভকামনা বাংলাদেশ থেকে। ধন্যবাদ জামান। Good evening, professors. Boishaki Mundal, good evening to you too. Boishaki. Vidisha, very good evening to everyone. Very good evening to you too, Vidisha. So all of you who have joined me later, I'm telling you that our honorable speaker, Professor Debasish Lahiri, has been delineating with Elliot, but suddenly some problem occurred due to technical glitch. That's why he had to disconnect, and very soon he is going to join. As he was using his mobile phone for this lecture, some problem occurred in the mobile phone. That's why he had to disconnect. So please bear with us, and he is trying to reconnect from his laptop, and very soon he will. A few minutes, please bear with us. Thank you very much. And regarding this today's topic, if you have any question, you can drop the question also over here. And after his intriguing session, definitely I will get back to our honorable speaker with the question, whatever you will drop in the comment box. So if you have, you can drop your question, and after the session that I'll do. But as I know that you are feeling very uh, you are feeling very bad because this video got frozen, and this wonderful lecture got broken. So don't worry about this thing. Sir is joining very soon, and as who have joined later, I'm telling you that this today's topic, that his topic is on the screen, that echoes in Prufrock and Preludes, and sir is dealing with this topic, and unfortunately, technical glitch took place, and he had no other option but to disconnect this one. And as he was using his mobile phone, so this is the main problem, that it was not working in mobile phone. So he is trying from laptop, and very soon he will join me. So thank you very much for bearing with us. And okay, it's a very good news that is joining us. So I'm taking our honorable sir on the screen.
Yeah, I'm
So
extremely
could
sorry.
you?
As I said,
It's okay, sir. Could you hear me out here?
yeah, I can hear it clearly. Absolutely.
Okay, sir. Okay, I'm removing myself from the screen, sir. You can resume your lecture.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I apologize. I told you I'm not really good at it, and you got first-hand evidence of the fact. Anyway, let me quickly get back. I'll try to recuperate the 5 or 6 minutes that I lost in trying to fumble out a way back into the system. I was talking about the torpor that goes into the scene that Caravaggio paints, and as I said, there's a history behind these paintings. I think, and Eliot is known to have been a known admirer of Caravaggio's work. He did not bring in that Salome reference. He did not bring in the prophet reference in an empty manner. He thought this thing through, right through. And you will see, and I'll try to show you that the John the Baptist reference is not an arbitrary one. It's not just a case of following the language and you might say the hieroglyphics or the system of signs enunciated by two great paintings in the Western tradition. It's not just merely that gives us or lands us with a poem like Love Song of Alfred Prufrock. It is a working out on the part of the poet of a complex history of violence against which he was also writing this poem. This poem, as I said, in the few allusions that I will be able to talk about today, you will see that there are two distinct lines that I will be talking about. One is death, violence, epistemic violence, physical and epistemic violence. On the one hand, death, mass on a mass scale, death on a mass scale, on the one hand. And the other one is, of course, a certain misogynism, a reaction against women, which, of course, I'll try and show you is a kind of a result of the first, this stream of violence that I was talking about. So therefore, let me go quickly back to the history of these two paintings. As I said, Caravaggio had been excommunicated from his order and the Knights of Malta. So he was trying to send these portraits to the Knights, the Knight Templar, the leader of the Knights over there, as a kind of a modern day bargaining chip, you might call it, as a way of trying to coax his way back into favor. So one has to understand that these paintings constitute a certain kind of negotiation, and yet the quite flagrant, naked show of violence in both of these paintings raise a very important question. How does violence affect us? How does the taking of a man's life, the brutal taking of a man's life without reason, this is death without reason. Just because a girl danced and just because a man said, whatever you ask shall be granted, a man's life has been taken. Just like that. And that to the life of the man who baptized the Christ. You have to understand the enormity of the event, of the actual decapitation, the actual act of violence, the enormity of it all. And the more it becomes, the more enormous, the more monstrous, because it is without reason. This particular poem, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, is actually a reference also, there's a huge influence of the First World War, the Great War as we call it, upon this poem. It's also one of those quintessential war poems. Normally it is not classed as a war poem in literary, you might say, taxidermy or literary structures in books of literature, histories of literature, but it is a war poem. Make no mistake about that. And Eliot, very early in the poem, establishes this idea of pointless violence. I'll go back to the poem itself, and I'll try and read for you that particular section where this comes along. Yes, one second. Yes. I'll read from here. Should I, after cakes, tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet. Here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker. In short, I was afraid. So you see the matter of fact way in which this death is introduced. Eliot, I think, draws upon the torpor, the lack of energy, and the sheer weight of unreason or unreasonable violence that so clusters itself, it clutters the central space of these two paintings or by Caravaggio, I think translates itself into Eliot's poem. As I said, Eliot was a master of translating the energies from other works of art, from and putting them into words, into poetry. So as I said, sometimes it's just a description of the spirit or the atmosphere or the feeling of a particular painting that does the trick. We only have to perhaps imaginatively connect that painting and see how adept Eliot is at very simply finding a solution to something which we think is very complex. Because when we look at it from the outside, we use the Bible more as a tool by which we try to place this particular allusion to the head brought upon a platter and the prophet, etc., etc. The severed head of a prophet also means a lot of other things. This is no ordinary man. This is a prophet, someone who has seen into the future, perhaps. One has to understand that great occult mentor, let us put it this way, in Guillaume Apollinaire, although their own personal interactions were very limited. But Eliot always thought that he was some kind of a spiritual guru or a spiritual, you might say, he was the leader, and Eliot considered himself to be an acolyte, a disciple of this great master of the occult. And the occult will bring me to the work of another painter, and I would ask, request Goutam to bring up the next Yes, thank you. I can see the image up on screen. I apologize once again for the loss of connection. You can see it's a very interesting one. It's called Song of Love, the Chantre des Morts. Uh, it's a severed head again. It's a pair of it's one of a pair of surgical gloves which is nailed to a wall, and you find some kind of a plastic ball, a green ball, in the foreground of the painting. At the back, on the left, you can see the corner, the sky, but there is what you might call the rooftop, and then smoke coming out of an engine, which is about a train passing by. Now, this is something that is very common in many of Giorgio de Chirico's paintings. Now, I refer to this because I distinctly remember the thrill that went through my veins when I went and watched this particular painting in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, where there is an Apollinaire room dedicated to him. The original of the painting, there were two actually, one in lithograph and one in the original. The original of the painting is in the New York Metropolitan Museum in New York. The lithograph version was there at the Museum of Musée d'Orsay, which was also done by De Chirico, by the way, after he made the original painting. Now, in this, why I refer to this, again, I remind you once again that Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock was a process, not a one-off writing of a poem at one sitting. I just write down a poem in one sitting and then that's it. Die is cast. The author dies and the words remain for posterity. Immortal words remain for posterity. It's not like that. It was a process of note-taking. And as I said, I reiterate once again before I dive into the images and the illusions in this particular painting and how they are referential to Eliot's poem. Before I do that, I once again reiterate the fact that these allusions to these paintings and these historical and literary tidbits were for Eliot a way of, as I said, taking down notes in a hurry. Time was passing him by, and he had to take notes in a hurry. A poet or a literature or a writer has to take notes in a hurry. How does he do that? He uses other images, other works of art as places, as structures which might contain those words, those impressions, and whereby he could go back to them and use them again in his work, own work later on. So the structure of illusions, the poem itself of J. Alfred Prufrock, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, is what you might call a smithy of ideas. And this I'm also borrowing from another great modernist writer, of course, James Joyce, who talks about the smithy that is working in the mind of the writer in his great novel, Portrait of the Artist of the Young Man, by Stephen Dedalus. Is preparing himself to become a great novelist at the end of the novel, if you remember correctly, again, the reference there. So coming back to this particular painting, you look at the severed head. Now, Eliot, as I told you, did not choose this poem, did not refer to or allude to or indulge in the context of this poem, of this particular painting, off the cuff, just like that, arbitrarily. As I said, the beheading cycle of images remains with him, and he continues to this one, where the head that we see is a very well-known work of art, that is Michelangelo's David. De Chirico actually uses just the head of that particular masterpiece by Michelangelo, Buonarroti, and he transposes that over here, paints that over here as some kind of a, as I said, a torn. This is, of course, this painting is the illustration of how the illusion works. Each one of these tidbits, the severed statue, the one out of a pair of gloves, the ball, the wall behind, they're all self-inclusive, self-reflexive, self-contained images by themselves. Each one of them can stand on their own as some kind of an image. Now, all of them are brought together in a larger context in one painting. That's how illusion works. Individual bits and pieces of idea gel together, are soldered together, and brought into a harmonious, organic fruition in poetry. That's how Eliot's art works. In this particular painting, the head, as I said, is Michelangelo's David. You might look at the single surgical glove that hangs and is nailed to the wall. Uh, Remember the formulated phrase, eyes that pin you down with the formulated phrase in Eliot's poem, of course, in Love Song of J.L. Prufrock, the pinning down. And remember also at the beginning, surgical gloves, by the way, are very much a part of our day-to-day lives these days, of course, with the COVID-19 situation around us. Death stalking us, here, there, and everywhere, all around us. So we see people wearing PPT equipment. We wear gloves ourselves at home or outside home. So the glove is no longer something unusual to us. Now, the surgical glove also indicates the process of an operation underway at the very beginning of the poem. Patient etherized upon a table. A doctor about to embark upon a perilous operation, perhaps upon a patient who is wriggling, half awake, half, drugged by the potion that he has been injected with, the anesthetic that he has been injected with. So you see that the medical imagery somehow working over there. And of course, the ball at the beginning. Now, the ball at the beginning also has a reference in Eliot's Eliot's poem. The very next section I read on. And would it have been worth it after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. Now, it's very interesting, the reference to the ball. Many of you, of course, have read as a part of your undergraduate syllabus Andrew Marvell's very famous poem, To His Coy Mistress, where you find that those couple of lines, let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into a ball. Of course, it's a reference to that, but also to the ball in De Chirico's painting, the green ball, plastic green ball in the foreground. Now, it is also interesting, of course, that while Eliot was in the process of writing this poem, the poem was coming into some kind of final shape by the year 1915. This painting was done in October of 1914. Very interesting. As I said, this was definitely a part of the grist which became material evidence with which Eliot wanted to work with. Right. Now, I will go now to the next image, if I may, Goutam, if I could have the next image. By the time the next image comes on the screen, let me talk a little bit also about the Lazarus. Yes, it is already up on screen. Thank you so much. The Lazarus image. Of course, it has to be Lazarus, hasn't it? Because no living person, as the epigraph of the poem promised us, can come back with the answer to the question asked by the poet of the person in hell, right? Whose answer is something that cannot come back. So it's like an impossible journey from death back to life.
Again, there is technical glitch. I know you don't like to find my face in between this lecture, but I have no other option but to come and inform you that a technical glitch again has taken place. So, sir is disconnected right now. But very soon he is going to reconnect and he will complete his interview lecture. Please bear with us because I'm really, really sorry on behalf of the Department of English because it is not in our hand when the technical glitch takes place. So this is the main reason that it is happening again and again. So I hope that he is going to reconnect very soon. We're very fortunate to have him on our platform because it's a really interesting session that is going on, and I hope that all of you who have been watching more than 50 minutes, I hope that you are enjoying. And this interviewing session is teaching us a lot. So please bear with us as I is going to reconnect very soon. And thank you very much once again for your constant support, constant cooperation that you have been pouring for us for a long time because we have been organizing this session, several sessions rather. I would say this is our 15th session, except one session is left. That is session number 8. This is pending. Hopefully, this session is going to take place very soon. And this session also will get. So this 15th session we have organized for this the student community, and I hope the student community are getting help from our this lecture. And we will keep doing, and there are other sessions also. As you have already notified that tomorrow there is another session we have. That session will not take place on Facebook. That will take place on Google Meet, but that will be broadcast on Facebook too. So those participants who have registered for the session, they will given that Google Meet link. And if you haven't suggested for the session also, you can also find it on the Facebook. So still we are waiting for our sir, and sir is disconnected. So please bear with us, and hope sir is going to reconnect and rejoin very soon. Okay, it's good news. The sir has already come, so I'm taking myself off from the screen and I'm adding him. Thank you.
I'm really sorry about this. Yes, so I was saying to the painting on your screen. That is, it's called Portrait Prémonitaire, or the premonitory painting of Guillaume Apollinaire by de Chirico. It's very interesting. There is a reference, of course. I mean, we think that this is just a brilliant detail being concocted by an Eliot and thrown at us. The kind of alternation in tone in J. Alfred Prufrock, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, between the very familiar small talk, the rhythm of small talk in parlors, in studios, amongst us, amongst close friends, and the sudden ascent to high art, references to high art or literature or religion, the sheer range, the way in which the poet takes us on these roller coaster rides right through the poem, somehow seemingly make us feel awed at the skill of Eliot as a poet. But let me tell you a little secret, perhaps, if I could call it that. As I said, what seems improbable and a wonderful achievement, and it is not always something like that from the inside. The poet's view of things is much more simpler. He is the creator. If he has an equally nuanced view of the critic, then I think it's impossible for the poet to create. You have to understand the poet has to see clearly. The first and most important thing for a poet is to see clearly, to see right through to the end of his poem, perhaps, to have an idea where it might go and how certain images, certain ideas might become handy as he goes along, charting and crafting his path forward. So this particular painting was also something which I discovered in that Apollinaire room at the Orsay. The original of this one is there at the Orsay, by the way. This is the original in the Orsay. This shows Apollinaire drawn in the foreground. Now, this is very interesting. This painting was done well before Guillaume Apollinaire, as we all know, participated in the First World War. which Eliot did not do. When I round up my little talk today, I'll have a few things to say about Eliot's dodging of the draft for fighting in the First World War, and how it affected this particular poem and the larger, you might say, the ethos of his own whole poetry. So in the foreground, we see the figure of Jerome Apollinaire with his hair curiously parted in the middle. There is a bald spot, exactly as Prufrock refers to his own hair when he says that there's a bald spot in the middle of my hair. Uh, he's wearing dark glasses, glasses worn by a blind man. But look at the way in which this particular figure is looking back at us directly. So this is not the eyes of a mere blind man. These are the eyes of a seer, someone who sees, a prophet. Once again, you see the reference to a prophet. Once again, we gravitate towards the references which were inaugurated, which were initiated by those two Caravaggio paintings about John the Baptist, the prophet. So on the background, what you see is there is a silhouetted figure, the silhouette, the dark silhouette, this shadowed figure in some kind of a doorway or window framework in the background. And a target, a white target, if you could zoom in on that, you'll see in the image that there's a white target drawn on the head, almost like, in a firing range, where policemen or armament practice shooting. You find these targets with white circles drawn on them, so that someone who's trying to hit a mark with a gun can actually do that. Here in that particular avuncular silhouette, where there is an aquiline nose peering out, which is leaves us with absolutely no doubt that it is Apollinaire. If you have seen Apollinaire's own photograph in the flesh, you will see that the nose and everything, the silhouette corresponds to Apollinaire. So there is a mark, a white mark drawn on his head, as if a target has been drawn on him, as if he is the target of death itself. He's been marked for death. And believe me, in 2.5 years after this painting, this is called premonitory painting because of that. Because when it was done in 1913, what happened in late 1914, early 1915, was that I will show you the next couple of
Again, the technical issue is there, so Sir gets disconnected. But he's going to join us very soon, so please bear with us. Again and again, I'm telling you, I never happened in this program. This is the first time it is happening before. I'm very sorry. I apologize on behalf of the entire department. Because everything is in now in our hands, so especially this is the disadvantage of this digital platform. We can easily talk, we can easily connect ourselves, but certain times come when it's also very difficult for us to get connected. The same thing is happening again and again. Again, I'm telling you, we're very sorry. We apologize for this inconvenience. But I hope that some kind of problem is taking place continuously, and also is trying to rejoin the session. So if you have any question, again, I'm telling this is going on the screen. If you have any question, you can drop your question in the comment box, and after it's quite sure that definitely I will take the question to our honorable sir, and sir will answer your questions. And you could also inform us how is the session, and if you have any suggestion for the upcoming session, you can also drop in the comment box. And do you like our session, and do you gain any kind of help out of the sessions? So anything else that you'd like to give us as a suggestion or as kind of advice, all these things are welcome on our platform, because I always believe this is a community, this is we are family. So in a family, then you are always welcome to suggest advice, anything else to us. And we are ready to accept your advice and suggestion. So if you have not only the question, if you have a suggestion, any advice, anything else, you can drop in the comment box, and we will definitely work on your suggestion as well as your advices. If you have anything else. So first of all, who are getting me on the screen. Don't worry about this thing that our honorable speaker, Professor Debasish Lahiri, has been delivering his intriguing occurred several times though. It happened that it gets disconnected once again. But he's trying his level best to just get connected once again. So please bear with us and please be with us if you find this session is very interesting and helpful for you. For him, I'm trying to get back. Yes, we are waiting for him, and so what I was telling you that already the Department of English Shadun the Mohammed has been organizing this special session, a special lecture series, and already you have completed 15, including this one, 15 sessions successfully, except one. This is number 8, and this session is going to take place very soon also. So in this session, what are the feedbacks that we have got? We're very happy to get the feedback from all of you that this session is really helping you. Thank you very much for the feedback that you have given us. And already we have got several suggestions also. We are working on suggestion. We have suggested some topics to deal with. Definitely we look into this one. And definitely we will organize some other sessions on the basis of your suggestion, on the basis of your advices also. And some of you already told me that why it is not on Google Meet, because this is also a session that I have been told that why don't you just organize this program at Google Meet? Why not? Why it is on Facebook? So the one reason is there why I our department prefers this platform, because I'm telling you, because Facebook is a place that if you have Facebook, then it's very good. Whenever I'm doing anything else, suppose this program is going on here, then it automatically it is getting recorded on the FB. So then I don't need to record anything else. I don't need to upload anything else. So there is data problem is there. Whenever the more than 1 hour or 2 hours program is there, then you have to record the program. Then you have to upload the program on any platform, whether be it on YouTube, be it on Facebook. So this is the reason that okay, I'm getting a call from Sir, so I'm just calling, taking the call that I'm going to give back. He's telling me that he's trying to get connected, so please bear with us. And what I was telling you that the problem that whenever I make when I record any kind of video which is more than 1 hour or 2 hours, then it's problem that to when you just go to upload this kind of recorded video on any platform, the data is important thing. So sometimes it's very difficult to upload that kind of more than 500 MB or 1 GB data to upload this video on any platform, either in FB or somewhere else. So that's the reason that when it is on FB, then you can easily the live session gets recorded, and if you pay visit to this page even after the session, then you can also find this lecture. Even it is also given on the YouTube, our official YouTube channel of our college. You can find that, and whenever you register for the session, and if you successfully submit the registration feedback form, then you are issued one certificate for the particular session for which you submit the feedback form. And along with your certificate, then the YouTube link of the session you attended also provided. So from that link, you can easily access to the lecture already happened. So this is the main reason behind this thing, that we actually organize this session on MB. So this is a different thing that I'm saying, and thank you very much for bearing with us, because what I can tell you that technically takes place continuously, and I'm extremely sorry on behalf of our department that it is recurring today, because usually you don't have this kind of problem, but today it is happening. I don't know exactly what is the reason, but it is happening today. I'm extremely sorry for this reason. But as you know that our sir, our Debasish Lahiri is very eminent speaker, and Professor Debasish Lahiri has been delineated with elite. Okay, it's very good news. The sir is on screen. I'm taking you on the screen. I'm taking myself off, or removing myself off of this session. So thank you very much, and bearing with me. I'm taking Professor Debasish Lahiri on the screen.
These interruptions. Uh, yes, I think they kind of give you a physical demonstration of the nature of illusions. There sometimes can be a hiccup. They can also be seamless. So getting back, without further ado, to what I was talking about, I was trying to peel off the different layers of significance in that particular painting and how they are significant for Eliot's poem. I went up to the point of talking about the imperiled poet, the poet under duress of death, poet marked for death. Realizing, after coming to know of the fact that De Chirico had already foreseen a poet of some merit himself, and a painter, of course, a great painter, had foreseen the death of Apollinaire. Apollinaire was even more convinced of the fact that the plot against him. He did not know who was plotting against him, but he thought that there was a campaign against the poet. Silence the poet, silence the conscience of the world, and you would have a certain kind of mastery, a certain automatized population of people would thrive in the world, which the poet, the presence of the poet, would prevent, of course. One is tempted to refer to a very interesting piece of work written by Apollinaire himself, which is called Le Poète Assassine, the poet assassinated, where there is this global campaign apparently to kill, to silence this one great poet called Tronia Mantal. And so therefore it connects with De Chirico's painting and showing the target drawn on the poet's head. The panel, the wooden panel, shows two interesting little symbolic pieces over there. One is that of the fish. One is to understand that the fish pointing upwards meant something, it pointed downwards, it meant something else during the Renaissance. And this is where I would like to bring in perhaps the name of Girolamo Cardano, or Cardanus as he was called later on, who was actually a writer of horoscopes, very interestingly. In the late medieval and early Renaissance days, horoscopes were seen as substitute for biographies, believe it or not. This man, Girolamo Cardanus, is credited to have done the horoscope of the biography of Petrarch, no less. Amongst the many things, and several other of his poetic peers, Guido Reni, the painter, and of course also probably of Guido Cavalcanti, the great friend and rival of Dante himself. So again, one of the principal interesting points over there that he mentions in those horoscopes is the fact that if there is a bald spot in the middle of the hair, or if there's a cut mark above the eye, the left eye or the right eye, these are apparently, as he interprets them, signs of a violent death. And especially coming in a creator, on the person and the body of a creator, an artist, a poet or a painter as he may be, these are fatal signs. So I just leave it at that and then continue with the image upon this panel, the fish pointing upwards. We know about the importance of the dolphin symbol in the Renaissance, a creature that can live in two elements. Of course, you might say the microcosmic projection of the artist who lives in different elements by virtue of his imagination. To balance, the counterbalance that, on the one hand, there is the poet's imagination, the upwardly looking fish. There is the scallop, which is, which is a seashell, of course. A scallop is a seashell, and it signifies normally, originally in Roman legends. This was the signal of the symbol of Artemis, of Venus. If you remember Botticelli's Birth of Venus, you see Venus emerging out of a scallop shell or a seashell. If you remember the Annunciation, another great painting by Leonardo da Vinci, you find that Da Vinci there shows on a particular panel right beside the Mother Mary, to whom the angel is communicating the fact that Jesus will be born to her. You find the symbol of the scallop. The scallop was a fertility symbol. The scallop was a symbol of fecundity, of birth, of beauty. But the inverted scallop over here, balancing the upwardly looking fish, symbol is a symbol of creativity gone haywire, of beauty that has lost its context. Several times in J. Alfred Prufrock, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, you find the character of Prufrock uttering words like, I do not know what this means. I'm not sure of things. So the uncertainty. And then he says, that is not at all. That is not what I meant at all. So he does not know what he says. He does not know what things mean around him. Now, all of this is this muddle, this confusion, where creativity, once creative energies, are now running aground. So again, if I would move to the next image, please. Goutam, if you could bring up the next image, seventh and last image, I think, on screen. Actually, there is a signal role played by this is supposed to be a love song, right? Yes. So you see, this is the Apollinaire with that bandage around his head, right after his hair has been shaved off. And quickly, if you could move to the next image, please. The next image will give you a more perfect idea, and you will see what I meant by premonitory portrait. Yes, you can see the hair parted in the middle, and you can see the almost exact replica of the image that we saw in de Chirico's painting, which was done before the actual accident on the field of battle. This was later. That was earlier. So which gave Apollinaire more, you might say, certainty that there is at work a deeper force than can be discovered by human eyes. It gave credence to his belief in the occult. And if we could now move to the last image, which is the half a page of the manuscript by Girolamo Cardenas. Yes, where you can actually see the bald spot once again, and the medical dicta that he brought out of that. And then, of course, the horoscope he made out of that, that these are signs of violent death, the poet's voice being violently quelled or silenced on this occasion. Now, I have just a couple of things to say before I wind up today in this rather incomplete study or incomplete prizing together of a system of illusions which I think is at work in Eliot's poem from the inside, how the poet saw it himself, figured it out himself. One thing which we quite often neglect in a reading of Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock is that how much Eliot's poem is indebted, in a way, to the way in which his great friend Ezra Pound, who of course is also credited to have edited much of his poetry, especially the Wasteland, the cantos of the Wasteland, how much he is involved in the process of bringing another great Italian poet, Guido Cavalcanti. I mentioned him in passing, a great friend and rival of Dante Alighieri, who also himself learned from the medieval troubadours. We know the troubadours are songsters singing minstrels who went about the countryside singing popular songs, how much the role of what we call in Italian sospiro. We have the inspiro or the inspirare, the act of breathing in, and sospiro or the sigh of breathing out. Now, the sigh in troubadour love poetry was crucial, the sospiro. Uh, you know, excessive sighing was seen in troubadour poetry, especially about love, the love songs of the troubadours, that is to say. Excessive sighing was seen as a sign of imminent death, that someone was finding it hard to breathe, that love sickness was somehow reducing. You might say these attributes of the lover to signs of imminent death. So once again, we are gravitating towards the threat of death, the duress of death, under which the lover's song operates. The stinting of the lover's song occurs at the very teeth of death and dying, with the special positioning of the poem coming at the heart or right at the tail end of the First World War. This is an even more important fact that we need to keep in mind when we try to piece together the evidence of the several allusions that work in Eliot. I would end by referring to the Maldemar de Mort. Now, this is a Latin and later a late French, you might say, reductive phrase of the love song of death. How can a love song be about death and dying? The entire poem, Eliot's entire poem, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, is actually testament of the fact that a love song is about death, is about this miraculous coming back from the world of the dead. Rescuing this song, the word, I'm using the word with a capital W, as it is often used in the Bible, the word of the Lord, the language of the Lord, a language that cannot be besmirched by these conditions of living and dying, which is eternal, which survives beyond the insurgencies of circumstance, history, death, etc. So I'm talking about that word, how the rescuing of that word is the love song. Prufrock, the difficult, inhibited character, emerges at the end, at the head, at the beginning of a different cycle, till human voices wake us and we drown. He talks about the negativity of the fact that the mermaids would not sing to his bidding, that he is powerless even to control, even to command the song as Ulysses did, as you remember in Odysseus, in Homer's Odyssey, as Odysseus in the Odyssey. He is incapable of doing that. And yet there is hope that even his incapability, the incompleteness of this attempt to find a proper voice, a voice that liberates Prufrock, that liberates the song, that is a love song. Even the incompleteness of that task, even the fruitlessness of that task, even the many failures encountered on the path to that task, to the reaching of that task, the ultimate objective of that task, that does not deter a Prufrock. And he goes into another diving, another fresh sequence is inaugurated at the end of this poem. I'll just end by saying, interestingly, that St. John the Baptist, the man who suffered that horrific death and whose paintings set off my train of illusions, just a few of those illusions, the many illusions. There's so much more to talk about. And I have not been able to talk about Preludes at all. In compensation for that, what I will do is I will read short sections out of two poetic extracts. One is a poem written by Guillaume Apollinaire, which was, of course, read both in the original French by T.S. Eliot. This was a poem written by Apollinaire as a tribute, as a thank you message to the great painter Giorgio di Chirico, whose painting we have seen already as a part of this talk. This is called Oceans of Earth. It's a very interesting poem, of course. It's called Oceans of Earth. Now that it's in French it is called Océan de Terre. Why I will read that is will be very evident to you. In that poem, again, this is something that Eliot knew very well about. He read the poem in the original French. Uh, he talks about the octopus. I have built a house in the middle of the ocean. Its windows are the rivers flowing from my eyes. Octopi are crawling all over where the walls are. Here their triple hearts beat and their beaks peck against the window panes. I don't read the rest of the poem. I'll just refer you to a few lines uh, in the poem, which is like, I would have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of seas. You can see that line where it comes from. The octopi are crawling all over the walls. Here their triple hearts beat and their beaks peck against the window panes. And of course, we have the yellow fog beating against the window panes in Eliot's poem. I'll read just a little more. And so very many of us have become our own grave diggers, pale octopi of the chalky waves, oh octopi with pale beaks, around the house that is the ocean that you know so well and is never still. And now I'll read from a 38-line note written by Eliot himself in his notebooks. So this is the smithy that I talked about at the very beginning, from where Eliot's poem actually came into force. This is the 38-line section he entered in his manuscript, in his notebook, which he called Prufrock's per vigilium, means Prufrock's insomnia, in so many words, his sleeplessness, and what happens during his sleeplessness. Out of these 38 lines, 33 lines never made it to the original poem as we know it. Only 5 lines made it to the poem. Again, I will read just a few lines to give you a context of what was happening. He says, shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and seen the smoke which rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows. This is there in the poem, by the way. Now, next what you see is interesting. When he says, when the evening woke and stared into the blindness, I heard the children whimpering in corners where women took the air, standing in entries, women spilling out of corsets, stood in on trays where the draughty gas jet flickered and the oilcloth curled upstairs. And when the evening fought itself awake, and the world was peeling oranges and reading evening papers, and boys were smoking cigarettes, drifted helplessly together in the fanlight, spread out by the drugstore on the corner, then I gave, and I had gone tonight to the narrow streets where evil houses, leaning all together, pointed a ribald finger at me in the darkness, whispering all together. Stop here. Already there are 1, 2 further references which one can talk about. All this peeling of oranges and reading of evening newspapers. If you have an interest in painting, if you go into what is called synthetic cubism, and if you look at some of the early drawings and might say early masterpieces by painters like Braque and Picasso, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. These are just merely almost descriptions in words of some of their paintings, where scraps of newspapers, broken rackets of croquet rackets, glasses of wine, teacups, stains on table fronts, fruit debris, still life, a lot of other things make their way into these paintings, into these complex assortments of tidbits of everyday life, which taken together mean something, but what they mean remains an esoteric subject. So you can already see there, and of course, that very wonderful image that I like so much about the lonely men in their shirt fronts, smoking on lonely balconies. That's a world without men that we are talking about. I said that there is a connection, and this is what I'm ending with, a connection between the worlds of violence enunciated by the war and the misogynism, which is also at work deep down in the bowels of this particular poem by Eliot. This fear of women, this dread of women, this distrust of women. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Those lines are premonitory lines also. So why the men in short fronts? Most of the men folk had actually gone to the war. The active men folk from about the age of 16 to about the age of 40 to 45 had actually joined the war effort, had to join. Those who were left out, a few men like Eliot himself, who, as I told you at the very beginning, journeyed from London to Paris, from Paris to Germany, and Germany back to London in order just to somehow avoid being enlisted, drafted into the army, because he had a physical sense of revulsion about physical combat. He didn't like physical combat. And like his great ancestor, Walt Whitman, that great showman, that great macho figure, who spent most of the Civil War sitting beside his mother, trembling at the sound of gunfire and cannon fire in the distance. Now, something similar was happening over here as well. Eliot was constantly feeling that as the perhaps the greatest voice in the world of poetry of his times, he had been bypassed by history. He had chosen not to participate in the most important event that was happening in the world at that time, the World War, the First World War. How would he ever be able to compensate for the guilt of not being there, of not participating, of being somewhere else, being safe when thousands of young men whose lives were being lost, just like John the Baptist's life was lost for no reason at all, an unreasonable death. When all the war poets like Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon, whose poetry you must have read, when they were writing about the horrors of war, here was Eliot who had avoided war and who was writing around it, trying to make sense of not being there, but yet making a contribution. How the war affected life, history, future, posterity, tragic position, but piquant position, but powerful position to enunciate, to talk about all of that. I'll stop here and I will allow questions to come and I can then answer them better. As I said, this has been an incomplete task, a task in which I have failed. I accept both, as I said at the very beginning. Talking about Eliot in 1 hour and making sense of all his echoes and illusions in 1 hour is impossible. I've tried to make a good fist of it. I hope I have inspired you to look further, look at the poem more creatively, more sensitively, and try and see if you can also unearth a line of reference which solders the relationship between us readers and the poet. I'll now hand it back to Goutam, who will probably send me a few questions.
All's well that ends well. I think this probably is the best way to just wrap up this session of your lecture. Because yes, we have faced several technical glitches, but the productivity, what I have got from you, that this intriguing session, we are really honored and we are really, really fortunate to have you on our digital platform. Another question as a session, few questions we have already received. So I'm taking the question on the screen, sir, so you can just get the question on the screen. Or if you can't find it, then you could tell me, then I read it out for you. So, sir, I'm taking the question. The first question from Megha Barui. Hope you can read it out.
Yeah, I've read it. To say I am Lazarus come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. Sir, can you please explain why Eliot is compared Prufrock with Lazarus? I did mention this, I am going to mention it again. You see, at the very outset, the epigraph from Dante's Inferno set out the proposition that the answer to the question given by the man who is languishing in the eighth circle of hell cannot be taken back to the surface, to the world of living men, only on the promise made by Dante, or the poet in a poet figure of Dante in the poem, that is Inferno, only on the promise made by the poet that he will not make or this answer known to people. He will not reveal this mystery of this answer. He will not break the cult, the hoodoo around this answer. Only on that condition was he allowed to bear the answer in his heart, in his mind, in his consciousness back to the world. So, as I said, it's an impossible journey from the hell inside the entrapped and enervating world of Prufrock. A journey back is like someone coming back from the dead to tell us how it felt. Now we know that this has been one of man's great fancies, if we can ever know what happens on the other side. We have had Several people who have come back with near-death experiences, but near-death experiences, not death experiences. Shamans, magicians, philosophers have all waited thousands of years, striven hardest in order to make that journey to the other world. They have written imaginative accounts, but never have they been able to come back with concrete news from the other side. So if Eliot is suggesting, if Prufrock has to bring that word from the depths of his own private hell inside himself out onto the world and onto us, unscathed, unalloyed, beautiful, complete, whole. He has to accomplish a miracle like the one accomplished by Lazarus, who, in answer to the call of Christ the Savior, Christ the Messiah, came out from his grave, rose from the dead. So it would be the equivalent of a rising from the dead, the rescuing or the coming back of the world. That is why the connection is made between Prufrock and Lazarus. And he has to be a Lazarus in order to bring back the word, the overwhelming question in the end of the very first stanza of the poem, very first section of the poem. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. The poem is prefigured upon an evasion of this question, or rather, the answer to this question. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Then I'm taking another question. This is from Ankita Hota. So can you please can you explain the significance of the title of the poem, focusing on the part love story?
It's not love story, it's actually love song. Love story would have been slightly different, maybe a little Bollywood-esque turn to events. Anyway, but still, yes, it might confuse a lot of us because kind of relationships, the way in which Prufrock reacts to women. I mean,
Okay, there is some connection problem once again. Um, Ankita is saying, sorry, sir, I mean, love song, extremely sorry for this. It happens, Ankita, some kind of typo, it happens. Sometimes whatever would like to type, but we type something different. Because the typo sometimes occurs. So don't worry about it. Again, some technical issue has taken place, so don't worry about this. Sir is joining. And we have found that one more question to be checking. This is from Megha Bharvi. So when Sarah will join us, definitely I will take the question to Sir, and Sarah will answer to you later. So please bear with us. Once again, I'm telling because this is a session that several times this problem occurred. So I'm extremely sorry on behalf of our department of our college. And because this is not in our hand, and again I'm just reiterating the same thing. I hope you can easily make out the situation where I'm in, because when the speaker gets disconnected, it's very difficult to just get it back because it's a physically he is present over here, digitally he is present. So I hope that he's going to reconnect very soon. So please bear with us. And one more question that Sir was answering, Ankita. So hope Sir will complete his answer for Ankita. And there is one question from Megha Baro is there. So if you have any other question, you can drop your question in the comment box. Sir will rejoin and Sir will definitely answer your questions because this is a very intriguing and insightful session that have taken place. But the productivity that we've got is, honestly speaking, we are really envious with the session. And not only I, actually, all of you who have watched it and still are watching it, and you have been waiting for the Sir to come back, definitely all of you, including me, we have learned a lot from this session. So please bear with us. Sir is joining me very soon. because some technical glitch has taken place. And the way you have, again and again, I tell you that the way you have been supporting this series, I'm really overwhelmed, and my entire department is really pleased to get your support, your cooperation. Without this, it would not be possible for all of us to continue the session consistently. So, thank you very much for being with us. I hope that with the next session also we will get your support constantly the way we have been receiving from you. So, as I've been telling, the story is not present right now because of some technical issue. Again, it has cropped up, so very soon he will be with us. And this is the first session that where several times this technical issue has taken place, so it is not in our hands. So I'm really very sorry, apologize on behalf of our department that this is happening. I hope you can just easily understand the situation that we have been going through. And okay, I still haven't got any kind of message or any kind of information from the sir's end. Hope he is also trying to get connected once again, and very soon he will get connected. So the question that you have, I'm just taking this one. That Sanjay Soren is has written that wonderful session. It is. Thank you, Sanjay. Uh, Koshambi Patra has written that the only problem in a Facebook Live is that it cannot be accessed to a mobile phone if one does not use the Facebook app. Yes, ma'am, I do agree with you. But the problem is also if we use Google Meet also, then also we need the Google Meet app on our mobile phone to use Google Meet. So basically, the situation is same whether you go with Google Meet, whether you go with YouTube, whether you go with Facebook. Then everywhere you need that app to access the particular lecture on the particular platform. So thank you very much for your message. Megha Bari has asked a question, so I will take the question to Sir when Sir will join us once again. So please, Megha, bear with me because I don't know just wrap up the session or wind up the session without Sir's presence. So please bear with us. Um, Okay, there is one message from Sanjay Soren, sir. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. Definitely, I will inform sir for of your text. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Soren, for joining us the session. And okay, I'm getting the call from sir. I'm going to Okay, I'm extremely sorry, participants and all teachers and all professors who are present over here who have been watching me live right now. And as you know that we have been organizing this session and today we are with session number 15, but I'm very much sorry with another information that I'm getting from our honorable guest, distinguished guest, Professor Debasish Lahiri. And right now the glitch has taken place. It's impossible for him to be connected right now. So as I find that there is one question left from Megha Baru, and I have already informed him there is one question left that is from Megha Baru. So he will personally answer Megha Baru on Facebook page. So Megha, if you would like to get your answer, then definitely sir will reply you soon. Don't worry about this thing. And I'm extremely sorry for that. This is because of this glitch. We cannot wind up properly with our distinguished guest. So thank you very much for watching this session. And also one before winding up, I'd like to inform you another thing that there is another station tomorrow. That is in the station we will have a very distinguished guest, Dr. Shubhodip Pal, and he is an assistant professor from Bakura University. And tomorrow he will be delivering a lecture on partition literature. And tomorrow's program will be on Google Meet. Whoever registered, you will get the Google Meet's link or code on your email. And this program also will be broadcast on AB2. So if you haven't registered this one, don't worry. It is a free access. You can access this lecture on our AB page. So on this note, thank you very much for bearing with us and meeting you. Looking forward to meeting you tomorrow on Google Meet as well as on Facebook. Till then, tada, bye bye. Stay safe, stay protected. Good night.